Hi class, and welcome to your math lesson for today. We are in topic 2, and this is lesson 6. And our lesson is going to be beginning on page 77 of our Envisions Topic 1 workbook. Our learning intention today is I can count back to solve subtraction problems. So again, this is lesson 6, topic 2, and we are on page 77 of our workbook. If you have your workbook ready and you are on page 77, then we can go ahead and get started. But if you need to pause the video to get there, please go ahead and do so. Okay, so starting on page 77 of our workbook, we're going to do our solve and share. Our solve and share says there are 5 people on a bus. It stops and 2 people get off. Use the number line to show how many people are still on the bus. Write the number. So boys and girls, on your workbook page, you do not have a number line. So if you want, you can draw a straight line and then put the tick marks in it to make a number line. Or if you want, you can just draw circles or X's to show your work. But if you want to make a number line, you absolutely can. Okay, so it says they are, let me get my pen. There are 5 people on a bus. It stops and 2 people get off. So it wants us to show how many people are still on the bus and write the number. So boys and girls, again, if you don't have a number line drawn on your paper, you can just make X's. That would be okay. So if you don't have a number line, you can just make X's on your paper like this. If you don't have a number line, you can just make 5 X's on your paper to represent the 5 people that are on the bus. And then it tells us 2 people get off the bus. They leave the bus. So if you are doing X's, we can count off 1, 2 people who got off of the bus. I'm going to use red. So 1, 2 people get off the bus. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3 X's or 3 people left on the bus. Now, if you are drawing a number line, one thing that you can do, you can say, okay, I have 5 people, there's 5 people on the bus, and 2 people get off, you can jump. So you can say, okay, 1 person gets off, 2 people get off. So that leaves me at 3 people. There are 3 people left on the bus. Our problem for this would say, okay, we have a total of 5 people. 2 people leave. And that is how we got 3. So all we did was 5 minus 2 equals 3. So again, you could either make a number line, or if you want to do the X's like Mrs. Collier showed, you can also do that. That would be perfectly fine. Now let's get started with our animated video that guides us through the top of our work page on 78.
How can you find 7 minus 2? You can use a number line to help you subtract. You can start at 7 and then count back 2 jumps. If you start at 7 and count back 2 jumps, you end at 5. You can also start at 7 and count back 2 numbers. Do you get the same answer? You get the same answer. You are finding 2 less than 7 either way. So 7 minus 2 equals 5. When you subtract 3, you count back 3. How can you find 7 minus 3 using a number line? You can start at 7 and count back 3 jumps. You can also start at 7 and count back 3 numbers. So, what is 7 minus 3? Select your answer.
7 minus 1, 2, 3 would give us 4. We can also look at our number line and say, okay, if I start on 7 and I jump back 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, that lands me on the number 4.
Seven minus 3 equals 4. Explain why you count back 0 when you subtract 0. Then use the number line to find 7 minus 0. When you subtract 0, you are not taking anything away. So you do not need to count back at all. So 7 minus 0 equals 7.
Now for our Convince Me section of our workbook. Now for our Convince Me section on our workbook, page 78. Our Convince Me says, write subtraction equations to show counting back by 1, by 2, by 3. So what this means in the Convince Me, when it wants us to show equations by counting back by 1, that means that our number will be subtracted by 1. And same for back by 2, that means our number is going to be subtracted by 2, and then by 3. So for example, if I were to say 5 minus 1 equals 4, that is an example of counting back by 1, because in my problem we can see I am subtracting 1. So we could see that if this was on a number line and I was at 5, if I jumped back 1, it would give me 4. An example of going back by 2 could be 3 minus 2 equals 1, because again, I am going back by 2. I am jumping 2 back. And if I said 4 minus 3 equals 1, that is also showing an equation going back by 3. So, boys and girls, can you write your own subtraction equations showing going back by 1, back by 2, and back by 3, just like Mrs. Collier did? So that means you would write a subtraction equation where you have a number minus 1, one number minus 2, and another number minus 3. So boys and girls, for our guided practice, still on page 78 of our workbook, it wants us to count back to complete each subtraction fact. So the first one was done for us, so let's take a peek at that before we get started. So again, when we say to count back, that means to subtract a number from our whole number at top. It also has provided us with a number line so we can practice counting back. So for example, our first problem says 4 minus 1. So if I were at 4, for example, and I am going to jump back 1. I'm going to jump back 1. If I jump back 1 from 4, that gives me 3. And just like in our problem that we saw in our video, now if I have 4 and I subtract 0, that means I do not jump at all. I still stay exactly the same. I would not jump. I would stay at 4. So that is an example of how to solve number 1. That one was done for us. Let's look at number 2. On number 2, we can see that we have another one of those problems. It says 6 minus 0. Well, just like how we talked about with number 4, if we were at 4 and we did not remove any numbers, we are not subtracting 1 or anything, we stayed the same. So if we are subtracting 0 from 6, it stays the number 6 because we are not losing any or counting back any. Now, if I were to have the number 6 again, so I'll be here on my number line, and I am jumping back 2, 6 minus 2. I would start at 6, and I'm jumping back 2, so I'm going to jump 1, 2. So that would give me an answer of 4. An answer of 4. So I started at 6. I lost 2 because I am subtracting 2. So I went up to 6 on my number line and I jumped back 1 place, 2 place, and that gave me my answer of 4. Of 4. Okay, let's do one more on guided practice. I'm working with the number 9, so I'm going to go to 9 on my number line. It's a little bit of a bigger number, but I think we can handle it. If I start with 9 and I'm now jumping back 5 whole numbers. Let's do it together. So if I start at 9, I'm jumping back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So jumping back from 9, and I jumped back 5 times, I landed on the number 4. So 9 minus 5 gives me 4. Do you see how on our number line we start with our number, and then the number we are subtracting it by is how many spaces on the number line we jump back by. Okay, one more. This next problem we are starting at 9 again, so I'm going to leave my 9 dot here. This time I am jumping back 3 spaces, so let's do it. So start at 9, jump back 1, 2, 3. When I jumped back 3 spaces from 9, it took me down to 8, 7, 6. 9 minus 3 is 6. So all we are doing is just subtracting, but we're calling it counting back. So I counted back 1, 2, 3, and that gave me 6. Now let's get started with our independent practice starting on page 79. Our independent practice directions say to complete each subtraction fact. Count back on the number line to help you. So boys and girls, for number 4 through 8, we are just doing exactly what we did in guided practice. We are going to find our number on the number line, and then however many we are subtracting is how many numbers we are going to be counting back. So for example, number 4, if I go to number 4, I see that my problem is 6 minus 5. So I'm going to go to my number line. I'm going to find 6. And you don't have to draw it. I just like to draw it to show you guys what I'm doing. But you can take your pencil and just hold it above it, and you can just count like this so that you don't have to keep erasing your number line when you use it for all of your problems. Okay, so if I start on number 6, like I said though, Mrs. Collier is going to draw it just so I can show you guys what I'm doing. If I am starting with 6 and I am subtracting 5, that means I'm going to count back 5 numbers from my number line. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when I counted back 5 numbers starting at 6, that took me to number 1. 6 minus 5 equals 1. So that is what you are going to do for number 5, 6, 7, and 8. You are going to use your number line to help you. And like I said, you can just do it with your pencil and count like this without having to make all the marks, because I know you guys are going to have to probably erase it a lot if you keep doing that. But that is how you are going to solve numbers 5 through 8. So at this time, now would be a good time to go ahead and pause the video so that you can work on those problems, because Mrs. Collier is going to begin talking about number 9 at the bottom of the worksheet. So go ahead and pause this video so that you can work on numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then when you press play, it'll begin talking about number 9 at the bottom of the worksheet. Number 9 says, draw a picture, then write an equation and solve. Our question says, Amy and Ryan buy pencils. Amy buys 10 pencils. Ryan buys 8 pencils. How many fewer pencils does Ryan buy? So it wants us to draw a picture, then write an equation to solve. So for your pictures, boys and girls, you could just draw your pencils, and your pencils could just be as simple as this. You could draw lines to represent how many pencils Amy buys. So if Amy buys 10 pencils, you could draw 10 pencils across. And then you could draw how many pencils Ryan bought. So Ryan buys 8 pencils. Or however you want to draw your pencils or draw your picture for this story. Then it wants you to draw your equation below. So you'll notice our circles are where our symbols goes. So we are subtracting, so I'll fill in your symbols with you. And then our answer is going to go after our equal sign. So you will put your answer here, and then also put your answer here where it says blank fewer pencils. So if Amy buys 10 pencils and Ryan buys 8 pencils, how many fewer pencils does Ryan buy? So you are going to write your equation using these numbers and write your answer in the blank. And for your picture, you can draw what Mrs. Collier did using pencils or however you want to represent your story. Now, class, I'm going to begin talking about page 80, our last page of the lesson for today. So if you are still working on number 9, just go ahead and pause this video. And then when you play it, it will begin talking about our last page and number 10. Number 10 says, Manny picks a number. His number is 4 less than 8. What is Manny's number? So Manny picks a number. His number is 4 less than the number 8. What is Manny's number? So it wants us to write a subtraction equation for this problem. So it told us one more time, Manny's number is 4 less than the number 8. So in your problem, you would put the number that we know. So we know the number 8. It told us his number is 4 less than that number, so we would write 4 less, and then what that number would be. after we subtract 4 less from 8. Then you're going to write that number in the blank and also write it down here in your answer line. And just pause the video as you go, boys and girls, because Mrs. Collier is just going to go question by question. So if you're still working on number 10, just go ahead and pause the video, and when you play it, we'll go to the next question. Number 11 says, Beth is thinking of a number. Her number is 0 less than 10. What is Beth's number? So boys and girls, I want you to think about in our lesson so far, when we talked about what happens if you are subtracting 0 less. When you are subtracting 0 less. When you are saying you are going to say her number is 0 less than 10, that means that that number is not going to change. So you would still write in your subtraction equation, you would still write minus 0, but that number is not going to change, boys and girls. It will never change. Even if Mrs. Collier said, I have 100 goats and I am going to take away 0 of them, I would still have 100 goats because 0 means I am not taking any away. Number 12 says complete the subtraction equation. Then write a story to match the equation. So boys and girls, you are going to write the answer for what 5 minus 1 is. So what 5 minus 1 is, write that answer here. And then it wants you to write a story to match the equation. To match the equation. So Mrs. Collier can show you an example of what that would look like so you know how to write your story. Girls, for my example, I said 5 bats are in a cave. 1 bat leaves the cave. How many bats are left? So in my story, I included the number 5. I showed that in my story, we took away 1 bat. I said 1 bat leaves. And then I said how many bats are left. So boys and girls, you can use this kind of example when you are writing your problem. Just make sure that you say how many you have. So you would say, I have 5 blank, or there are 5 blank. Tell me that one of whatever you're doing in your problem. So if you were saying, Mrs. Collier, I have 5 dogs. Say 1 dog leaves. I want you to tell me that one, whatever you're working with in your problem, leaves or left. Then I want you to say how many blank are left. So again, if your example was dogs, you would say how many dogs are left. Because I want us to be able to write our own equation to match. So if you're not sure how to spell some things, I understand that. But I want in your problem to have the number 5, tell me that 1 left, and I want you to say how many blank are left. I want to see that in your problem. So go ahead and pause the video so you can work on number 12, because number 12 might take you a couple minutes to complete. But I'm going to start talking about number 13. So go ahead and pause the video, and then when you're done working on number 12, it'll be ready to talk about number 13. Our last one, number 13, says select the difference. So when it is saying the difference, it is talking about what is the answer for 10 minus 3. So saying select the difference is just another way to say what is the answer for a subtraction problem. Our friend down here says you can draw a number line to help us subtract. We want to know what 10 minus 3 is. If I have 10 and I jump back or take away 3, what would be my answer? Is 10 minus 3 7? Is 10 minus 3 5? Is 10 minus 3 3? Or is 10 minus 3 equal to 1? Once you find your answer, you can fill in the circle with the correct answer choice. And if you need to draw a quick number line, you absolutely can do so to help you solve this problem. And once you are completed with number 13 and the rest of your problems, then you are all done with your math assignment for today.